Well, aloha, ladies and gentlemen. You are looking at a 6-year-old. I can't stop spilling beverages tonight. Um, Perhaps on my recap, you noticed he missed some stuff during that main event. Yeah, just spilled my water all over one of my video game controllers. Um, not an alcoholic beverage, so I don't have a good reason for why this happened. And then shortly after, trying to start this show, did the same thing. I am 6. I have no explanation for what has happened. I'm telling
If
you
you'd
with
like to donate a
complete
sippy cup to Kelly, we'll start a GoFundMe.
thank you.
You're welcome.
Make it branded. I like wrestling, but I also like Bluey because I babysit my nephew, and Bluey's a really, really good show. Um, so Bluey will probably be easier to find than, for instance, Asuka. Blake Riley in the chat says, damn good show tonight. Flew by quickly and a lot of fun. Could not agree more. This was kind of like PLE-ish feel because there were meaty matches and not like a bunch of really short segments and things like that. Um, and then at the same time, it felt like a weekly episode. Now, I will say one of the reasons the matches really, really did come together and coalesce into really strong matches is 4 of the 5 did have one of the sides that were main roster talent, or at least one main roster talent in 4 out of 5 tonight's matches. So there you go. Good stuff. We've got, let's talk main event. Belair and Naomi defeat Metaphor. This one went 12:58. This was your longest match of the show by 1 second. Usually not that close a call, but that is how close it was. A lot of wrestling minutes on this one. Like 56 minutes of wrestling on this one. So that's on the heavier side. So every match had at least a split screen break, if not just a break altogether. This match was super fun. If this was a tryout for Metaphor, I would say that they passed. There was a really weird moment where Jakara Jackson pinned Naomi, but it was not counted. The ref did not hit the 3. So yeah. Then there was a test pattern, and it said WWE transmission, and it deleted, and then it said Vengeance Day, and that was it. So, or at least that's all I got. But I know that. Okay, that's all you got too.
That's all I got.
Okay, so I don't know what that's hyping. I thought maybe there would be one more statement making it not clear who it was going to be or what it was going to be. But I thought maybe it would. I thought maybe they would give us something more there to chew on, but it was literally just a teaser that said something will happen at the show where things are expected to happen. So I don't know. A good hook, I suppose, but I would have preferred a tiny bit more of a morsel. Goodfellow 1422 in the chat is saying, thinking TNA invasion. Early IWC speculation was Hardy's, Sammy Callahan. I don't know, maybe Aleister Black, since men's division is so top heavy on main roster now. Yeah, wouldn't be sad if it was Aleister Black. Would be really blown away if it was Sammy Callahan. He was in this company once a long time ago. He was considered one of NXT's first really big misses.
Solomon Crow.
But if you go back and watch his run, he sucked. Like, I'm sorry, but he did not hold up his end of the bargain. His character was really messy. His mic work was really throwback and not in a good way. In the ring, he was perfectly fine, but not as much of a dynamo as he is now. But he was fine, and he had 2 different pushes that both ended up stalling. And I watched it a second time through thinking I was going to think, man, they really missed on this guy. But I was like, I can see why they didn't throw in with him at that time. But I'd be really interested to see the version of this one, Sammy Callahan, showing up and doing his thing. Now, I will add, as always, I am not plugged into TNA, like not at all. Everything I know about TNA is because it was mentioned on NXT. I don't have room in my life for more wrestling. It would be fun if I did, but I don't. I watch every NXT, Raw and SmackDown, and I watch every single New Japan show, and there are a lot of them. So no more time for TNA. Although I hear really good things about that last big show they had, their last pay-per-view, which definitely had a name that I am not remembering.
Genesis.
So he can help me out. Genesis.
It was TNA Genesis. Yes.
So main event: Belair and Naomi retain. Vic had to cover for that really weird moment with the referee just not counting 3 because he was not supposed to. Yeah, Metaphor looking really good in this one too, in defeat. So didn't expect this to change hands on a non-main roster show, and indeed it did not. But a really strong main. So Nate, talk main event.
Yeah, this is basically what I expected to happen, but I think it was clear from the crowd reaction that people wanted to see the Meta Girls kind of take away the tag team titles, or come away at the tag team champions here. Nothing against Naomi and Bianca. I mean, they're amazing competitors and great stars in their own right. But there's just kind of something about Lash Legend. She's in her hometown. They're on an NXT show. They're trying to build NXT a little bit, or at least let me not build NXT, but position NXT a little bit differently as of late. With main roster competitors kind of in the mix as well. So even though I didn't expect the title to change hands tonight, I kind of hoped it would, maybe to get a couple more eyeballs on the product, or just to have, anything can happen in the WWE, that kind of a mentality. But is what it is. I think, like you said, I think the Meta Girls still looked good in defeat. They had a really good showing here tonight against tag champs. It was really cool to see both, Naomi and Bianca back in NXT. Naomi, obviously, she was part of the original game show version of NXT, but still ties to NXT nonetheless. So really cool to see that. Fun match. Obviously had that little bit of an issue, timing issue with the pin with Naomi and oh my God, I want to say Jada Parker, and it's not Jada Parker. Jakara Jackson. A little bit of the timing issue on that pin there, but I mean, things happen. They work through it as best they could. Is what it is. I think just because of that, I don't think it really takes away from anything. And they could always turn that into an angle too, right? Maybe the Meta Girls, down the line, since they are they are the heels here, they could kind of use that as some ammunition, maybe get a rematch or something like that, if the company feels like that's the direction they need to go. But I definitely like this here. Hi, Corbin. The transmission at the very end, yeah, it was jarring. It was almost like something I would expect out of like the Wyatt 6 or Bray Wyatt or something like that. I mean, it was one of those rainbow different color transmission, like something goes off air unexpectedly, if you haven't seen it. But you probably know what I'm talking about, even if I'm not articulating it correctly. Not sure who that could be. I mean, a few people have mentioned some names here in the chat. I hadn't quite put much thought into it before we started here, but I like a couple of the suggestions. I don't see how it connects to the Hardys, but I could definitely see how it can connect to Sammy Callahan, especially considering his gimmick in the past in NXT. Again, I don't know a whole lot about what he's been doing as of late, so I don't know if it connects to that gimmick either. But still, I'm really curious to see what that was all about, because I thought there was another issue with the transmission here tonight, like with the actual like NXT show. Obviously they had Bailey get cut off a couple weeks ago, so I thought maybe it was something along those lines, but doesn't look like it. It looks like it might be, or it looks like it's an angle or foreshadowing for an upcoming debut.
Yeah. We got a couple of people. Let's see. Brock Benningfield says, my first thought was Wyatt's. Would Wyatt's on NXT feel like a merging of worlds that don't fit together anymore? I worry about that. But I don't know. I think it's also good to keep the Wyatts in a context where you have no idea what the hell they're going to do. So maybe that's worthwhile. And Skylar mentioned that the ref had not. The ref started the count when Naomi's shoulders weren't even down yet. I didn't notice that. Easy to notice the biff at the end, but there you go.
Real quick with the Wyatts, right? The Bray Wyatt character, the Wyatt family, started in NXT, so they do have that tie. They could tie that in somehow if they were to bring them there, but still, I kind of tend to agree with you. It doesn't feel like it's the proper place for them.
I wonder how weird it is or would be for Eric Rowan to go back to that building where he did all his work with his two fallen brothers. That's got to be hard for that guy. He has been through a lot. He lives locally. I have run into him. My brother's run into him many, many times. My brother runs a restaurant, but used to run a different one that Eric goes to quite a bit. Would exchange small numbers of words with him, a respectful number. Really nice guy. So I hope that the rest of his life is not as bad as that patch was, losing his brothers. Brian Alston says, as Kelly knows, the Funkadactyls had a couple of NXT matches. They did. Naomi showed a lot of promise, and Cameron was also there. I don't have much else to say about Cameron. She gave it a shot. That's cool. And BJF says Stevie Turner had a hacker style gimmick in the past, but don't see how that would be a thing with her current gimmick. Yeah, that wouldn't make a lot of sense given what she's doing now, but that hacker gimmick, I loved it. It was one of my favorite things. It was probably the most current that this company had felt in a long time, because this company feels like it's kind of trying to keep up the trends a lot, especially when it was Vince and it was like all kinds of really, really old men running this the company.
Words all over the screen.
Yeah. Oh God. But I thought Stevie Turner's gimmick was very now, and I thought it was a bummer that ended.
It was unique. It was somewhat unique, at least WWE, but it was streamer gimmick, not necessarily a hacker gimmick. So for people that watched, Twitch or random streams, things like that. I mean, a lot of times they like younger generation knows YouTubers and streamers more so than like quote mainstream celebrities.
Yeah.
So it was an awesome gimmick. I wish they'd bring that or something like it back.
Yeah, and she really, really knew how to get the most out of it by tapping into all the things that irritate people about streamers. The things that people think streamers are, and not necessarily what they actually are. But the perception of them. So there you go. Yes, Ryan Slorio said that same thing. I thought she was supposed to be a streamer. So yes, not a hacker necessarily, but maybe I think they could make a lateral step that way if they wanted to. That said, I do not think it is her. But you're hearing it here that you come back. Nate, last week we talked about Luther Reigns Horseshoe. Did you listen to all of the podcast?
I did. And wow. If you guys have no idea what we're talking about, Luther Reigns came up last week and we started talking about
I love
Horseshoe,
bringing up
who was
Horseshoe.
his WCW gimmick, and Wade Keller popped up in the chat saying that the Luther Reigns Torch Talk was amazing and legendary, and both Kelly and I were like, "Oh, really?" So we listened to it. Wow, yeah,
Yeah,
he had some opinions
it
and
was raw.
stuff. It
Um,
was, and
he
this
had
was
only very recently left the company, like within hours.
within hours,
And
and it was this was before your days of podcasts and before YouTube and things like what we're doing right now were the norm and could be done very like accessible to just about anybody. So something like this was kind of obviously Wade was doing torch talks and things like that, and I think there were a handful of others at the time, but this is much more unique than the things we'd hear now anyway. But wow, that was a thing.
he's an interesting man, and just a foul mouth on that gentleman. um,
I just
I
love the
have one
fact.
too. You wouldn't know that listening to this podcast. I have a mouth that is as foul as Luther Reigns. I just don't bring that to this particular show.
I try
But
not
yeah,
to, but
Luther
sometimes it
did
slips out.
not. Yeah,
Yeah,
he apologized it for a couple of times about it a couple of times. Wade was like, "No, yeah, it's okay."
I just thought it
Just
was absolutely hilarious. Like to me, it
yeah,
was hilarious that like his prison name was Horseshoe, and then he
yep.
was trying to get this badass character named Horseshoe over with a horseshoe haircut, and I thought like Horseshoe was always like just a bad WCW gimmick.
It came from a cool place because they called him
It did.
Horseshoe because he had been in so many positions, so many life situations where he should have died that they said he had a, horseshoe up his ass.
Horseshoe is an
So,
antiphrase. Yeah.
so they called him Horseshoe because he was the luckiest man, because he had not died despite all the situations he had been in where he should have. Anyway, if you haven't listened to that particular Torch Talk, you should. Even if you don't think you care about Luther Reigns, you will at the end of this Torch Talk. Let's talk about NXT because that is what we're
Before
here
we do
for.
that, it's a good
Go
place
ahead.
to just I'll put up the VIP plug graphic because we don't do that very often. So
Yeah, there you go.
there we go. Go VIP.
The second longest match of this show, by just 1 second losing out to the main event, was the opener. Also a women's tag team match. Bailey and Julia versus Roxanne Perez and Cora Jade. This one went 12:57. Also, just really fun stuff here. Bailey playing the face in peril. Very interesting to see your main roster last year Royal Rumble winner playing the face in peril, but she was tapped to do so. But indeed, Bailey did get the Duke in this one, pinning Cora Jade, who has to play the fall girl kind of a lot. And that was brought into the story back in the back. Ava, who was very put upon this week by all the stars on the show, she was trying to explain what the women's championship match would be, and Roxanne Perez stormed in thinking it would be Bailey and said, "I didn't even lose; it was Cora who did." And Cora was none too pleased about that. And then she said, "If you would just let me finish," which she had to say a couple of times this week, did Ava. It's a triple threat. Julia versus Bailey versus Roxanne Perez. And Perez goes, "Well, okay." And Cora said, "No, we're not okay." And she stormed out. And then she stormed in on Ava later and said she would have to have words. Ryan Slorio asks in the chat, "Do you think they will turn both 3-ways into fatal 4-ways?" I don't know about both. Um, I guess they could do that as kind of like a duality, a little storyline, both things happening in the men's and the women's. But I think the men's will, because I don't know what else you do with Trick unless you have him in a non-wrestling role, and I think fans will be unhappy if he has to do that. Um, as for Cora, I think it's better if she is not, but perhaps in some way costs Roxanne the match, and that either turns Roxy face or Cora face. And I guess you could do either, although I wouldn't do either. So I mean, maybe they just want to split them up and keep them heel, but heel is the way for both of these women. They worked both face and heel. And there are people who said, I still don't see Roxy as a face, or as a heel. And I don't know what you're not seeing, because she is a great heel and she was a very milquetoast babyface, even though she looks like one of the world's good guys. And I think she is, from what little I hear. But I think that Trick will be injected into the men's match. I think that Cora's story will be different. But whatever it is, we'll know soon, because that show is not very far away. 2.5 weeks ish. So there you go. And but anyway, Nate, all you're on the hook to talk about right now is that opening match and the saga of Perez and Jade.
Yes. So I mean, the opening match, I really liked this. You know, Bailey, like you said, coming back, playing that that baby face in distress. You know, getting a hot tags, and it was just cool to see. Very cool to see. Obviously, very beloved in the NXT environment, whether they're in Florida or not. You know, but not only that, just you know, the fact that main roster talent down there to put over NXT talent, and she did that. She did just that, not just not just with Julia by giving, you know, kind of the rub to being on the same tag team, but also, you know, the opponents as well. You know, I think everybody walked away from that match, you know, better than where in a better spot than when they went in. You know, Cora, you know, it kind of looks like she maybe for a minute there may not have been in a better spot until she kind of got you know, called uh or I guess Roxanne called her out, and then she went to Ava to get her to try and get a spot in this match, or in the match for Vengeance Day. But I don't know, I'm kind of with Kelly. I kind of wish, because I don't want to see both men's and women's titles matches become fatal four ways. Like, it's been, I don't know. I feel like we get multi-person matches all the time for main roster titles, and I'm more of a singles match kind of person. Maybe add a stipulation there, here and there, multi-person match every once in a while. But you know, I don't know. I just don't want them to keep adding people to matches, and then having two fatal four ways. Just, I don't know, unless you're doing a branded like NXT fatal four way pay-per-view or something like that. um I just, I don't know, I think it just feels a little too busy for one show. You know, that said, they certainly could do it. You know, it'd be fine, I'd be all right with it. Um but I think, you know, like you said, at this point, what do you do with Trick? You know, unless he continues to, quote, misbehave, and Ava just doesn't give him his match because he's, you know, misbehaving, and as she said, and you know, not doing what he's told, which I think is interesting, because there's so many other wrestlers backstage that just, you know, run rampant, run loose, do whatever they want with no consequences. But because he's Trick Williams, he gets in trouble, and maybe he could even play off of that too. I mean, might be a slight little, I wouldn't say heel turn for Trick, but it might be a little bit of moment of realism for him, in kind of a moment where the crowd's like, "Oh, damn," or something. Um, but yeah, I think, yeah, I talked a little bit about the match, but yeah, Kelly, I think, covered majority of it, so I think I'm good.
Yes, Ryan Solorio says they might split them up, they being Roxy and Cora, for a couple months, because it looks like Cora is about to challenge for the Impact Women's Championship.
That is
There you
true.
go.
Yeah, she's right now in a bit of a feud with Masha Slamovich.
And Brock Benningfield says, Roxy going to main roster soon? I'm going to say yes, but I always say yes, and I'm usually wrong. So
I had a
so
thought
don't
tonight.
take mine and gamble with your money. So there you go.
It was just one. It was just one thought, but I had a thought tonight. Um, it you know, we always talk about, you know, NXT members, roster getting called up to the main roster. Yeah, I was thinking about Trick tonight, and I kind of go back to like, I was thinking more about the Attitude Era, but I really guess this applies to any era in the WWE or anywhere else in wrestling. But we always talk about, you win the NXT title, and then the next thing you do is go up to the main roster. Trick Williams now, he's a two-time NXT champion. He's a two-time North American champion, but his story's still not done in NXT. We see that all the time on the main roster, and we don't really question it. Like, you get multiple championship wins, and then maybe then they're not, this person isn't in the main in contention for a main roster title, or sorry, the main world title rather, for quite some time, and we don't really question it. Maybe we're saying, they're not getting a push, or they're cooling off, or what have you. But I don't know. I think I'm going to start looking at NXT that way a little bit more, because we're always so quick to say, when are they getting called up? We're excited to see them up on the main roster, but I, I don't want to see people get called up just strictly to get called up. I want them to have a purpose for getting called up. So it's like, I think their stories could certainly continue on NXT, um, beyond championships and things like that. Um, I just think it's a way that, or an angle that a lot of NXT fans don't look at the product with, and it just might be an interesting way to kind of look at it from here on, if I'm making sense at all.
I'm going to say sort of, which is kind of your general state, right? There
Pretty
you go.
much.
Steve Repshire says, I'm going to be at Vengeance Day, getting here's a show, but we're saving the good stuff for Vegas vibe about the card so far. I will say that, Steve, I am not sad that Minneapolis got Deadline instead of Vengeance Day, because Deadline was quite good, quite a lot of fun. Would still have preferred, arena seating and not floor seating, but what are you going to do? Good stuff. Goodfella says, show will still slap. You'll have a great time, I bet. He referring to Steve Repshire. Yeah, we'll see what they do with this card. It feels like at least something noteworthy will happen, if that test pattern is to be believed. Even if the matches themselves do feel like one of those shows that you put on because it's time for a big show, but you don't want to give away anything that is really definitive before Stand and Deliver. So Goodfellow also said, we'll talk about that next. Let's go to that. The Waller Effect. They had Obafemi on the show. Accidental face turn for Austin Theory, who's always more of a face than Grayson Waller. That's kind of the thing that they have going. But this is his home. So Waller even announced him as Atlanta's own. And then Waller kept it in heel contacts, saying, but they call it ATL because they can't spell the whole thing. And then they brought out Obafemi, who took them to task. And Goodfella says, poor Grayson and Austin getting shamed by Oba for not winning the chip. Yes, Oba said, I think that I've been more successful in NXT than you two combined. Yeah, Grayson Waller won the Iron Survivor Challenge, but he doesn't even have that over Obafemi because he did that too, and then won the championship, which Grayson did not. Steve Repshire says, but I do like NXT's venue choices. Yeah, the venue I went to it's so cool, and it's one that it's more known for music, but small, intimate, kind of like the venue they were at today. I really liked the look of the place they were today. I don't remember who said it in the chat, but they did call out the fact that it was a very, very short ramp. That ramp was like 10 feet, 10, 20 feet, maybe a little more than 10, but yeah, like 20 feet from Gorilla to the ring. They did not have a lot of room to play with, and they didn't go out to two of the sides of the ring very much because there was no space to play with. Just a couple of feet between the ring and and the barricade. So they kept it on either the ramp side or the announce table side, which is what they do most of the time anyway. But they were very, very gun shy to go to those other areas. But anyway, Obafemi tried to make a match with these guys. Ava once again got all Ava with him and said, "You don't make these matches, I do." And then in the back, she made the match that he was trying to make anyway. So not sure what her problem was. Whatever. Said this will be a triple threat, but Trick Williams was watching on the screen and was none too happy about this. So they're not doing heel with Trick, I don't think. So with some of the really high potential guys, they do try them out on the other side of the ledger to see what they look like before they take them to the main roster, just to see what if we should have them this way. And Trick was kind of a heel hype man, but he was always kind of a likable heel hype man. He never played like a nasty heel really at any point. So he was more of a he was almost more bumbling. It seems weird to say that happened, but there was a time where he was a bumbling sidekick, especially when the House of Horrors matches were going on and things like that. So Trick had his match with Wes Lee, and Trick was hit with an Obafemi power slam beforehand. So in case you thought their issue was over, it is definitely not, because Oba and Trick laid out Waller and Theory. And then Oba just turned on Trick because that's what Oba do. And then Wes Lee ended up beating Trick by disqualification because Trick attacked everything in sight, which included a referee who was also in sight. And that was no good.
By the way, that referee is the strongest referee I've ever seen. He got thrown to the mat and was immediately back to his feet. Like that referee needs a medal.
Most of the referees you pan over and they're just in a coffin already after a spot like that. It's done for them. Or they sell it for, half an hour because why not? Wes Lee wins by disqualification at 10 minutes and 12 seconds, which is about the longest, shortest match this show has ever seen. It is very, very rare that the shortest match is over 10 minutes, but that is indeed what we got on this very main roster heavy episode. So on the Obafemi saga with with the championship, which will probably be the main event of, I don't know, are Grayson Waller and Austin Theory going to be in the main event of this show? I don't know. It seems like there's something big still to come for this show, even if that thing is an angle and it's away from the ring. And on that Trick versus Wes Lee match, and I just want to say very briefly, but I'm going to leave you some talking points, is I sure love the way that Wes Lee is working in the ring as a heel. All right, Nate, go ahead.
100%. I'll start there actually, because I want to talk about it anyway. But I like the fact he looks a little bit more cut than he has, and maybe that's true, and maybe it's the fact he switched up his look a little bit. He's wrestling in trunks, as opposed to either the baggy pants or baggy shorts. I can't remember what he was wrestling in before, but I remember them being baggy. That different hair color. It's a good look, but he's also switched up his style in the ring. It's a very different Wes Lee than what we're used to seeing as as the Rascals member for years and years and years, the MSK member the past couple of years. So definitely like that about Wes Lee. I am a big fan of what's going on with Trick Williams right now. He's a champion that just lost his title. In one of the backstage segments tonight, he even said to Ava something, and I'm paraphrasing, but I just lost my title. This is what happens to champions. They just want to get their title back. Kind of insinuating that champions kind of might go a little crazy, go insane just because they want to get their belt back. And he's getting put in a few different situations that I could see understandably getting a little frustrated at. And we saw that kind of come to a head tonight in this match. Trick Williams and Wes Lee, where Trick did he put his hands on a WWE referee, WWE official, that has been cause for fines for other wrestlers in the story in the past. So let's see if Trick Williams winds up getting fined or getting called out on social media by like Triple H or Shawn Michaels or something, and potentially, like I said, fined or have some sort of a consequence. Maybe that's one of the consequences. He's suspended until after Vengeance Day, and maybe that's how he's not added into the match or something like that. But whatever it is, it's just a little bit of an added layer to the character of Trick Williams, and I certainly like that. Speaking of characters that I like, Obafemi. Obafemi on the Grayson Waller effect, as Kelly was mentioning a little bit ago here. I thought it was a pretty effective segment. I mean, Grayson Waller and Austin Theory are incredibly entertaining anyway. I feel like some people might think they're a little overrated or annoying, or I don't know. I think they're super entertaining. Both of them really understand their characters. They play off of each other very well. And they continue to do that tonight, even with the kind of strange, I wouldn't say strange, but the I don't know, to use a WWE term, bizarro world, the kind of reaction to Austin Theory. Obviously, he's in his hometown, so I guess it's not super bizarro world or whatever. He's getting cheered there, but even though he does normally work more of as a face compared to your Grayson Waller, I think they pulled it off pretty well. Maintaining their control over the crowd and over the segment, throughout. Obafemi just kind of wrecking through everybody, and eventually getting into what's essentially going to be a handicap match. I mean, it's that's what it's going to boil down to. Grayson Waller and Austin Theory are going to team up to take down Obafemi, and then once they do, we're probably going to wind up seeing them try to fight over who's going to let who win to become champion, which is going to allow Obafemi to just take control once again and retain his title. That's my guess. As long as Trick Williams doesn't get in, isn't put into the match. As long as it's a triple threat, that's how I kind of see that one going at Vengeance Day.
Yeah, Goodfella says, good shout on them controlling the crowd. Loved that for them. Yeah, that was pretty funny. They figured out ways to lean into it. Big fan of what they did. Definite pros in there. But yeah, when he said, I don't know about Wes Lee's haircut, clean cut, looks more babyface than ever. Yeah, I just didn't think that at all. I thought he looked like a douchebag.
Yeah,
like with the short hair and the frosted tips, I was just like, this looks like a manager who thinks that all of his workers think he's cool and none of them do. Like, I actually think he looked so cool and so approachable and everything when he had the braids, and I think he looks more like just a self-important windbag than ever. The way
couldn't
he
have
is
said
now.
it better myself.
Yep. I just
Yep.
and I love that. I love the way that he
Oh yeah.
he looked. He didn't look baby to me at all today. You can email us at pwtorchnxt@gmail.com. This is from Brian Alston, and if you did not know, Brian is black, which is relevant to his particular email. Hi, Nate and Kelly. Quick story. My mom likes the Meta Girl. She was watching the Sherry Shepherd show and watched an interview with Mercedes Moné. Mom found NXT on CW and has been watching it for a few weeks. I
All
sent her a
right.
text describing the tag team title match. Mom was happy to see 4 black women in the main event. Don't forget to listen to the Torch VIP exclusive podcast NXT 8 years back. On February 3rd, Kelly and Tom Stout talk about the weekly NXT TV show. They also answer movie questions. This week, they will be tackling the back half of Disney animated movies. Have a good night, Brian Alston. Yeah, I will be recording that tomorrow and just found out right now what my movie question is. So I will be giving that some thought before I record that tomorrow morning.
I want to see if we can get Mama Alston on a podcast and talk about some NXT. So Brian,
yeah,
gotta
don't
make
know
that
if
happen.
podcast material, but if she is, yeah, let's see that happen. Let's go your crossover match, Shotzi versus Fallon Henley. Fallon Henley is a champion, but you wouldn't know it from how often she is on the show. She's there, she's around, but it just seems like there have been other things taking up the bulk of TV time. So I liked that she had a match here, a couple seconds longer than the Wes Lee Trick Williams match at 10:15. Fallon Henley defends against Shotzi. Both of them had two people in their corner, and those people were shunted off, brawled their way to the back, and Fallon Henley did end up winning a match where she repeatedly targeted Shotzi's previously legitimately injured knee. So Shotzi sold a kayfabe re-injury to that knee in this match. They didn't always look like they both knew what move was going to happen. There were a couple of clunky moments here, but for the most part, it was okay. I just think Shotzi's got kind of, I wish she had a higher ceiling, but I think we have seen her reach her ceiling probably. But I think she's still valuable as a mid-carder and as somebody who looks like nobody else. Fallon Henley, I think, can be a real talent if they really turn her loose. I think. I've been kind of quietly being a pretty big fan of hers for quite a while. Goodfella says correctly, Senton Bomb was stiff. Yeah, that looked like it may have just, it's a good thing it was as low as it was, because it was kind of on her lower extremities where this landed. Because if that had been too high on the other end, like on her upper chest, that might have really been a problem. And straight on the belly would have just absolutely knocked the wind right out of her. It was, in real time, it looked even worse than it did on the replay. But even on the replay, you could see heavy impact on that particular spot. So, yeah, glad
as
there
Jeff
was.
Hardy will call those croutons.
Yes, he would say something like that, wouldn't he?
Yep.
He's a goofy guy.
He is.
Fallon Henley, still your champion. 2 title matches this week, but nothing changing hands. And I don't think. Oh yes. Fatal Influence got a little bit of mic time later. Kind of funny, subtly funny, as she said, I didn't even get to celebrate my win for more than a couple of seconds, and then Stephanie Vaquer interrupts me, and you don't interrupt me. And then JC Jane interrupted her, which was pretty amusing. And she just kind of gave her a small look. And but JC Jane will be the lamb to the Demon's slaughter next week, as Stephanie Vaquer works her way toward that match at Vengeance Day, which has already made a one-on-one match on an NXT PLE. Wouldn't you know it? It can be done. So there you go, Fatal Influence and the very, very cool and scary Stephanie Vaquer, Nate.
So Ryan calls me out, says that I met Matt Hardy. Technically, it was Matt Hardy that coined them croutons, but Matt and Jeff still call them croutons. If memory serves, anyway, from watching their recent interviews with Chris Van Vliet. Anyway, we were talking about Fallon Henley, Shotzi, and all of that good fun stuff. No, Fallon Henley, I wish they would put a little bit more focus on the North American Championship. We're kind of getting there, obviously, with Stephanie Vaquer. I think Fallon Henley's made a decent champion. We were expecting Fallon to be the inaugural North American champion. Quite frankly, we were. If everybody remembers, we were all pretty shocked when Kalani Jordan won that title. I think a lot of us were expecting Fallon to clinch it there. And she was still a babyface at the time. Now she's in a heel role, heel champion, and she's done a good job. But I feel like the booking, like Kelly said, she's been on TV quite a bit. Obviously, this feud with Shotzi, Gigi, and Tatum Paxley and Fatal Influence has been going on for quite some time now. So she's been on TV, but she's not always the one in matches. It's usually the other two, that have been in matches, and she's standing, kind of playing manager, which, is fine. I guess you don't always want to see your champions wrestle, kind of keep them as special attractions and whatnot. If you're kind of thinking in that mindset, then that works. But at the same time, it's also kind of been like an out of sight, out of mind thing. So I don't know. I'm kind of expecting a Stephanie win at Vengeance Day for the North American title, considering her name value, kind of the pomp and circumstance that they've given to her since she has debuted in NXT. I feel like it's kind of inevitable. We could be wrong. We could wind up seeing, the rest of Fatal Influence, get involved in this match, as they always do, just as the Bloodline also always interferes in matches, and as any stable would, kind of see them get involved and help, the champion retain. But I don't know. I'm kind of heavily leaning towards Stephanie becoming the third. Maybe the third women's North American champion. There was something else that you had thrown to that I'm also forgetting.
Fatal Influence had their mic time. That was really the only other thing.
Okay, then I don't really have much to say there.
Kevin Catani emailed us as such. Salutations, gents. I hope this email finds you well. I've spent most of my evening ministering to sick kids, so I didn't get a chance to watch in real time. That said, with the Royal Rumble coming up at the end of the week, who are your NXT picks to show up, if any at all? Thanks as always. Go VIP and listen to 8YB. Let us be good people to those around us. Office hours are now over. The Professor, Kevin P. Catani, PhD. I love the question of which NXT stars are going to show up in the Royal Rumble, because it gives me a chance to be really wrong on a really big scale every week, every year. So that is, I am a very, very good predictor of Royal Rumble things. I get the winner right way more often than I get it wrong. And I have many, many times correctly picked the first two guys that were going to be in the Rumble. I did it last year with the Usos. I did it with Rey Mysterio and John Morrison the year that they were 1 and 2, because it just felt right. I did it the year that it was Dolph Ziggler and Evan Bourne. I am that obsessed with the Royal Rumble that I just know how it is booked, and I've gotten those little things right on them a lot. But this particular question, man, do I just biff it in a big way. But it seems easier now, because I think there is a better synergy and a closer booking strategy between HBK and Trips than there is between Trips and Vince McMahon, or anybody and Vince McMahon for that matter. I think that what he liked and what he noticed are so different from what somebody who, I don't know, I'm not going to be mean. He gave me a lot of years of good entertainment, but I mean, so many weird booking choices, just so many. So yeah, I think there's a greater synergy there. So this question might be becoming easier. That said, I don't think there will be a lot, if any. If you want to count Jordan Grace, that is, I mean, the worst kept secret in the world is that she will probably be in the Rumble. Now, she's not NXT, she's TNA. I get it. But she's the closest thing I got to being right in this question. So I have to take it, because I'm always wrong about this question. Wes Lee, I think, is somebody who is potentially overdue and is potentially also in his final form. And I think that the changes to his look could be what he is, what they want him to be now that he's heading up to the main roster. I almost would have said Julia if she wasn't a champion. I just don't think she's somebody who needs to spend a lot of time there. I am going to say Roxanne Perez. She has been teased enough for that main roster that I think it is time. And I think if she stays down in NXT, she runs the risk of being lost in the shuffle because she will no longer be a priority. Then she's off TV. Being off TV is is the kiss of death to somebody who's trying to make the main roster. I think now is the time for her. And if Fallon Henley loses that championship, I think she actually even might be a contender to go up. And they could even bring that trio up. I know that they haven't been. JC is just JC, and I think Jasmine is actually quite a bit better than JC, and probably maybe even where Fallon is. And I think that even though she hasn't been down there long, I think she could be fine. They wouldn't be like top stars or anything, but they need other ones. Ryan Solorio says, "You think Jordan is going to start on the main roster or star a few months in NXT?" Goodfellow responds, "I think she should go straight to main," and I agree too. I think that the name value and just the look are enough to say just do it right away. It's not like she's struggling in her matches. As long as she knows. So the only reason that stars go to NXT, even if it's sometimes off screen, is to learn the different production that WWE does, because WWE does production on a different level than absolutely anyone. I am including everyone. It's just on a different level. So that is what they're there to learn. Hard camera, where moments happen, just their little proclivities and how they shoot things. Goodfella on the Fatal Influence question says, "JC, great character work, very rough in-ring work for me." Me too. And the way I see it is, like when we were talking about Raquel Rodriguez forever ago when she was on NXT, one of the guys, I don't know if it was you, Nate, or if it was Tom, because I think she goes back pretty far on NXT. She was there for quite a while. And I said, "I think you bring her up now." And I thought it was Tom who said something like, "She's really not that good." And I said, "She's not, but she's also no better or worse than she was the day she walked in. She's not improving, so you might as well move her to the main roster if you want her at all." She's literally just the same talent that walked in this door. She's no better on the mic. She's no better in the ring. She's just okay at both. And now she's in the background of Judgment Day, and that's fine. I think that's a fine place for what she's really, really capable of. So, I mean, that sounds so mean, but I just think that she is a mid-card talent. And I think that that's true of JC too. Steve Repture says she's had 2 name changes. Yeah. It happens. There are some, I mean, Kane had plenty if you take his entire career into,
Yeah, but
and had
he was at least different
some weird
gimmicks.
ones. Yeah, different gimmicks. Yes.
Yeah.
But
But
there you go. So I am supposed to be talking about who's going to be showing up in the Rumble, but I'm off the rails because I found some interesting ways to talk about it. Yeah, I don't think it will be very many, partially because the main roster is stacked and you don't want to send a message to the main roster that we are going to load this thing up with NXT talent. So there's going to be a lot of you that don't get on this show at all. I don't think they want to send that message. So it will be limited to a couple of people who are actually going to stay there. So if I have to pick a guy and a girl, I will pick Roxanne Perez. And did I say a dude?
you said Wes Lee.
Wes Lee. Wes Lee's my dude. Nate, go ahead.
So Roxanne was also going to be my pick. And I'm also going to pick somebody, say his name, and he appears, I believe, in Joe Hendry. That's all I'm saying. TNA champ. It's got to happen.
Goodfellas says, "I bet they want to show off Zarya." Yes. There you go. Zarya is definitely somebody who the right time to bring somebody like Zarya to the main roster is the Royal Rumble. It is the perfect time for a monster to debut on the main roster. So if they're not going to, I mean, they're not doing anything with her. That might be because they're just going to put her there. But there you go. Ryan Solorio says, Kelly, who do you think is going to win the men's rumble? All right, time to put my money where my mouth is. I'm going with Sami Zayn. So there are a lot of reasons to go with other names, but I think this is going to be the big underdog win for Sami Zayn. I know that's what he's about, but I think that there have been a lot of hints that that this could be Sammy's time, and that one's emotional for me because that will set me off in the greatest way if it actually happens. I'll cry a little bit if that happens. But I do think it could be Sammy. Ryan himself responds, I'm going with Jay. Very good pick. Goodfella says, all that star power in the Rumble. Bold pick. I like it. Yes, this Rumble does feel so stacked. Very, very excited about it. I'm always excited about the Rumble. If I haven't made it clear on this particular podcast, the Rumble is my favorite thing. Not my favorite wrestling thing. My favorite thing. The Royal Rumble is my favorite thing. I have a couple Royal Rumbles memorized in terms of who comes in, when they're eliminated, and who eliminated them. I have a few memorized. I've seen most of them 20 plus times. I'm not exaggerating at any of these things. I am obsessed with the Royal Rumble.
I kind of want to take 10 minutes and put this to the test here.
I don't know. Do we? As I get older, the memory's getting worse. So like the recent ones are the ones that are tougher. But if you went to like 89, 92, like those, it wouldn't. Ryan Solario says Royal Rumble is my wrestling Christmas.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that
I enjoy the Rumble.
Yeah, I don't know that I can say it any better than that. This is a non sequitur, but Reverend Keith shows up. He says there was a huge production gaffe in the closing moments of the main event. The cameras panned the crowd, and we missed Bianca's spear on Jakara. That makes sense. That would be the move that she did in that spot. And come to think of it, it was kind of a weird transition to her just being down. Back on the Rumble, Goodfellow says Nakamura and Drew winning recently was fun. Yes, Drew was definitely one of the picks that could have won. Nakamura, the year that he won, he was definitely the one I wanted to win, and I could see reasons for it to happen. The match with AJ with a built-in backstory, New Japan based, was that was like candy for this dude. And I only have one wrestling signed piece of memorabilia on my wall. I've got a lot of wrestling signed things, but only one on my wall, and that is a Shinsuke Nakamura photo. So yeah, I broke down at the end of that one. I was very, very happy. So that particular Rumble, very cool. He on the men's side and Asuka on the women's side. Yes, that was good wrestling. Super Christmas for me.
Good time.
And the matches with AJ were all kind of meh, except one, in my opinion. Goodfella says that also is true. I wish it wasn't, but it is. Okay, so I believe that is the Rumble section of our particular show. Unless you want to hit me with a question later, I don't know. And hopefully my memory holds up. But let's talk Cedric Alexander versus Ethan Page. This one went 11-10. Javon Evans makes the save afterwards, and this time did not get himself injured in the process. So that was cool. But Ethan Page playing crazy right now. So anything on that particular one?
So I thought that this match had one of my favorite Booker T moments ever. When Ethan Page slammed Javon Evans. What's Javon? No, who's it was Cedric Alexander's fingers in the toolbox, and Vic was like, he just slammed his hand in the toolbox. Hey Booker, yeah, it's a fight. What do you want him to do? It's like, it's so absurd, but I laughed. I thought it was great. One of the rare moments that Booker actually gets me to laugh on commentary. He's not as
Booker had
bad
a
as
couple today.
he did. He had a couple.
He set the guys off a couple of times. He made me laugh when he called Corey Graves gravy. I don't know that
A
I've
few
heard
times.
that.
He did that a few times. Yeah.
And it amused me. Oh, what did he say early on in the show that there was something that was just so great, and I can't think of what it was, but yeah, they said, yeah, when was the last time you saw somebody get punched in the face during a game of chess? And he said, well, it depends on who you're playing chess with. And neither of the other two guys can keep their composure. Both Vic and Corey, who's usually pretty good at staying in character if he has to, he just let himself go. He just let himself laugh. So yeah, good week.
Oh yes, definitely. Cedric Alexander here, I thought looked great. He had really fired up. Very, very, very strong start to the match for Cedric.
Cedric usually goes in there and just has a nice match, and he worked this like a little bit of a feud match, and that is one of the things that's held him back was his ability to really compartmentalize. I love Cedric. I like him more than I think most people do, but I've seen the gaps in his game, and it was a really good week for him.
It really was. It really, really good week here. I think he looked very strong against Ethan Page. Obviously, Ethan Page still, getting the win, and still slamming his hand in the toolbox and getting a few more visual wins, I guess, than just the pin as well. But I think this was still a very good week for Cedric. Ethan he's I really like what they're doing with Ethan Page right now. I mean, he kind of had that little couple weeks where he was sad that he lost the title, and then he snapped on Javon Evans, and we've kind of just seen him on this very vicious, evil streak over the last few weeks. Especially attacking Javon Evans, a couple times, making him bleed from the mouth with blood that was totally from Javon Evans' body and definitely not blood capsules at all. Absolutely not. But I'd rather them use blood capsules than it actually be Javon Evans' blood. So I'm just,
I'll say this for the blood capsules: the color was pretty close to right.
Oh,
the blood capsules are usually like, okay, that's
at least
a little on the bright side, and it was a little on the bright side, but not too heavy on the bright side.
At least it, like when I was in Lowell the first time, Javon Evans got hit in person, it was way too bright. It was way too bright. But on camera, it looked mostly okay. Still a little on the bright side, but mostly okay. But yeah, that I don't know. I don't really think I have much more to say about it than that. So we'll move on.
In the chat, they are predictably talking about who will win the Women's Royal Rumble. And I'm seeing a few picks here. Io Sky is a lovely pick because there's somebody else I love. I do have a signed thing of hers too. It is a card that I hit one time. I'm the general manager of a sports card shop, and we get a lot of wrestling cards, and some of them I just buy and take home. And there was one box of a set called Fully Loaded, and all it is one card, and it's autographed, and that going in. And I got Io Sky when she was still Io Shirai, and she was on NXT. This would have been like a bummer to most guys who ripped this, who had not heard of her yet. For me, being an NXT guy and being absolutely in love with the work of Io Shirai, yes, very, very cool to me. But it's signed Io Shirai, which is not her name anymore, so I don't know. I've also gotten a couple of autographs over the years on wrestling cards where the autograph and the wrestler's name weren't the same because they changed the wrestler's name. So like for Otis, his name is just Otis, but he signed the thing OD because he was Otis Dozovich. But if you didn't know that he was Otis Dozovich, you're like, Why the hell does Otis sign it OD? That doesn't make any sense. So yeah, in a world where gimmicks and names change, not always ideal. Farouk told stories about how he would sign autographs. One day he signed autographs, like, he didn't do it all the time, but he spent like an hour, just anybody at the airport who wanted his autograph, he signed it. And at the end of it, he turns to Bradshaw, JBL, and goes, "Dude, I think I've been misspelling Farouk all day." He was like, "I think I've been putting one A on all the autographs instead of two." So yeah, if you're an autograph authenticator out there and Farouk's name is misspelled, it might still be legitimate because Ron Simmons is pretty sure that he has misspelled the Farouk name. There you go.
Hey, the WWF WrestleMania 2000 game designers for the N64 game didn't know how to spell it either, because they only spelled it with one A.
Oh no. I don't know. I must not have played that one because I didn't.
I remember that as a kid going, "That's not spelled right."
Yep.
And
my guy, good fella in the chat, is speaking my language. Says, "I'm a collector myself. Panini did a great job with the license, but Chrome dropping Rock Autos will be a $100,000 card for a 1 of 1. I bet. Also, Rock/Austin duel. That'll be fire." A lot of you are not going to understand the sentences he just said, but I understood them all. And
there was something about a
correct.
sandwich in there.
Sure, Nate. There definitely was. There was talk of
he said something about a panini.
Oh, Nate has so much to learn about cards.
If it's not a magic card, I don't know.
We'll do that away from the show. So, yes, panini is a sandwich. It's true.
It is,
but it's not just a sandwich. There you go. Okay, did I do Kevin's email? I sure did. Carmen and Kalani. Carmen Petrovich is living the dream. She's out there and she gets to look away from somebody who walked away and go, "What a bitch." If I'm a wrestler, I just want to do that all the time. Somebody walks away from me, no matter the situation, I want to be able to say that. So good stuff. Somebody in the chat earlier, and I didn't bring it up at the time because it wasn't in context, said they really liked what both Kalani and Trick were doing. Yeah, somebody asked us either last week or the week before about Kalani and if we thought she was turning heel. And I said, I really don't know. And I don't think they know. I think they're testing out what they have with her. They're just trying out the meaner aspects of Kalani, who has mostly shown herself to be sugary sweet as a character. So these last handful of weeks have been really some good development for her, and like honestly better for her than her championship reign was. Although that was good for her as well. So God, Kalani was so milquetoast for so long. I'm like, she's so good in the ring. Give her something, just anything to do. So that's very cool. And then Trick, we're tapping into obviously a darker part of him as well. So I don't think we're trying Trick out as a heel. If I think one of them is about to be a heel, the one that I think it's going to be is I think if one of them is going to be a heel, it's going to be Kalani, but I don't know that that's going to happen. I think they're just trying out some badass on her and seeing how it looks. So
I tend to agree.
That was the Carmen and Kalani thing. So on those two and what they are trying with them. Anything, Nate, before I go to the other backstage segments?
Not really. Nothing more than what you said. With Kalani, I might be a little bit more skewed than you are, thinking they may be leaning her heel. Because at least last week I was with you, with them maybe just kind of trying to get some edge on her or something. And I'm still not saying that isn't what they're doing, but I feel like that line when Kalani when Kalani walked away, and Carmen Petrovic was like, "Wow, what a bitch," or whatever it was that she said that involved the word bitch. I don't know. I feel like that's some foreshadowing to some sort of a character change. WWE is pretty good, especially as of late, of kind of dropping little breadcrumbs like that sometimes when it comes to some character changes and character development. So I don't know. I'm thinking that might be it, but I'm still not sold on that. As of right now, if I had to make like a call, I would still say they're kind of trying to sprinkle some edge on her. But I don't know. That position might be rapidly changing.
I realized that I did not make a call on the women. I did not make my official call. My official call is Charlotte. I'm sorry, that's very boring. I hope that it's Io. I hope that it's you guys that are correct. Goodfella says Jada for Rumble, please. All in. Jada, I think, is very, very close to her final form. I don't know how much more she really needs to work on before she's there. And again, when somebody's off TV on the way up to the Rumble, my natural thought is, well, they don't need her anymore, so why matriculate her into stories? Goodfella says, I have Flair winning Chamber. See, this is my big failing. I always forget the Chamber, so I predict everybody to win the Royal Rumble because I'm not thinking about the Chamber, which is weird because I love the Chamber too. So yeah, Sammy and Charlotte, you heard it here first, unless you didn't hear it first, in which case you heard it here last. You heard it here is the point. Okay, so Eddie Thorpe had a hype segment that I thought was pretty okay. Some heel fire, some of it maybe dangerously close to babyface, but yeah, definitely saying that he's still a player. Sarah Schreiber talked to Izzy Dame, who was really done up. Maybe I'll start remembering who Izzy Dame is at this point. Because Izzy Dame is somebody who, when she is not on my screen, I forget her completely. Ridge shows up and says, "You cost me my match." And that's super uncool. And Stack says, "Hey, you can't talk to a woman like that." And I'm like, but she did cost him a championship. So, and like literally all he said was that you cost me a championship, and maybe you can. Next week we got Jordan versus Petrovic and Holland versus Stacks. And then we got Josh Briggs giving Yoshiki Inamura a jacket, which I don't know if this was taken out of Japanese cultural stuff, but in the Japanese, like, you don't see this on the shows at all, but there is at least one restaurant that's like a really good restaurant, but is essentially a hole in the wall in Japan it's really famous for, it would give out these jackets that were really basic, but like to get a jacket from this restaurant as a wrestler meant that like this giant sign of respect. So it would be given to guys like Andre, like Hogan, like guys who were like mega stars or whatever, are just guys who had done a lot for Japanese wrestling. And then they started giving them to referees and to kind of everybody. And so it wasn't a really big thing. So I don't know if that's where this comes from, but yes, Josh Briggs did some work with Pro Wrestling Noah, and Noah does a lot of work. Noah is kind of TNA to NXT in terms of what these are doing right now. There are a lot of ins and outs of why that's a different thing, but Noah's pretty friendly with New Japan. And Noah is clearly the one that is not. New Japan is the one. So there is that. And Ryan Slorio says, I think Omos got that jacket recently. So, I mean, there's Exhibit A. Omos seems like a really nice guy. And as a wrestler, I will say Omos seems like a really nice guy. So yeah, that's the jacket thing. But at any rate, I think I'm supposed to already think that Briggs and Inamura are a really big deal, but I don't know that they've been featured on NXT TV enough to warrant that. We need some matches out of these guys. But anyway, on that segment, anything on the Izzy Dame, Tony D thing? By the way, Izzy Dame did say bada bing, bada boom. So clearly they're teasing that she's in something with Tony D. And then Goodfella also asked for your picks on the Royal Rumble. So Nate, we're putting you on the spot as well.
So I'm also thinking a Charlotte win, unfortunately. I mean, well, I don't know, fortunately and unfortunately, whatever. But that's my realistic pick. My hopeful pick would be Jordan Grace. I think that would be one hell of a main roster debut, to come in and just dominate in the Women's Royal Rumble and then take it. I don't know. Could happen, may not, but if that does happen, I'm gonna buy a lottery ticket. Um, on yeah, the other segments, I don't know. I don't have a whole heck of a lot. Izzy Dame, like you said, not really somebody I think about a whole heck of a lot. So I am glad that they are putting her into some sort of a feud or some sort of a story right now to maybe get her some more time and maybe make it so I don't always go, oh yeah, Izzy Dame, she exists when she shows up on TV. Yeah, and I think that's about it. I don't really have anything to say about the next segment. So yeah, we can move on.
Rev Keith said this. I missed it. They are building towards a face Jada versus a heel Kalani. Fire emoji. I don't know if they are or not, but either way they are. Either side that those two are on, I think that's going to work just fine. Jada can do heel easily, and she can do badass babyface. We saw that they tried that on, and that particular jacket looked great on her. Kalani, I think, is a better babyface than heel. I think she's more natural at that, but she is one of those ones who's shown me more in terms of badass than I would have guessed. So that's where we are. Nate, I hate to say it, but we're at the end.
All right.
And I told you like 5 hours ago, oh my God, I forgot it was Tuesday and I'm just not in the mood. And here we are having a great show and a great chat in here. And this one's been a lot of fun, gang.
Yes.
So thank you in the chat. This was very painless, super fun to do. Talking a little bit of Royal Rumble, and maybe we'll do a postmortem next week because that'll be in the rear view mirror. A couple of my very best college friends are coming over for the Rumble, so cool to see them anyway. One is a surprise. He lives in California and told me today that he would be here. So very, very cool.
This is going to be
well.
This is going to be my girlfriend's first time really watching wrestling. Is going to be with the for the Rumble, so this is going to be interesting. See what happens.
Yeah, hell yeah! Royal Rumble '89 is the show that got me into wrestling. When I saw the Royal Rumble, I really understood what wrestling could be, and I never looked back. I watched the Royal Rumble for the first time, and then by a month later, I had seen it like 10 times. So there you go. One last stinger. Keith Bennett says the stories are leading to Punk and Charlotte winning the Rumble. I know they are, but I see, for reasons that would take a long time to get into, I see reasons for Sami Zayn to win that Rumble. But yes, if it's Punk, I won't feel stupid because I know that's the smart money. So Punk and Charlotte are probably the smart money. Punk and somebody, but I'm sticking with Sammy and hoping that something interesting happens at Rumble. I just don't want everything to be predictable. That's all I ask of a match that's supposed to be unpredictable. I'm Kelly Wells. You can find me at other Kelly Wells on Blue Sky. Nate, who are you?
Nate Lindberg. You can check the things I do out at natelindberg.com.
All right. Cheers, everybody. Awesome chat. Really fun show. And we will see you very soon. Cheers.